He covers the Seattle Seahawks for The Athletic, does a great job. Michael-Shawn Dugar, he was a part of that crew that wrote this article this morning. It came out, I believe, about all that is ailing the Seahawks and their star quarterback, Russell Wilson. Michael, welcome to the Odd Couple.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, man. Been a big fan for a long time.
Wow.
Thank you, man.
Nice.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. And great job on that story. All right, so let's go over it. What is the main issues between Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks?
He wants them to believe in him the way he believes in himself, right? He sees himself as a Brady, as a LeBron, as a Derek Jeter. Like, look at all the dudes I'm naming right now. Like, these are multi-time champions. These are MVPs. These are guys who go down as, like, the GOAT, if not in their respective franchise, their respective sport, or in terms of Brady, like, he's being discussed as the GOAT athlete, in America right now. That's where Russ sees himself. Meanwhile, he has a coach who also controls the personnel, and Pete Carroll, who's like, okay, cool. I mean, I think you're good, but, like, we really should be running it and playing good defense. That's what's got us there last time. And meanwhile, Russ is like, well, that ain't got us nowhere in like 5 years. And so why don't we try what I'm doing? And, and Pete was like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And they gave it 8 games. And I was like, all right, I'm done with this. There's a lot more context to it, obviously, as we wrote, but, like, it really is a matter of, like, Russ viewing himself a certain way and understanding that the franchise, mostly Pete Carroll, does not view him that way. And he's not going to change. If he's not going to change, man, get me out of here.
Yeah, I'm saying I would trade him. Once a guy goes public and, bashes the organization and the offensive line and whatnot, I just think I'm one of these guys. If he doesn't want to be there, then get somebody who does. And, they went to 2 Super Bowls. They won 1. Maybe that's all you're going to get from him. I mean, he's played – how many years he's played? 9 years, no MVP votes. Maybe you try to rebuild your defense and get back to what, like you said, running the football, playing defense, and having a quarterback that manages the game.
Yeah, that's the scary part if you're Seattle. So it's not only that they were running the ball and playing good defense. They had like 5 Hall of Famers on that team that won the Super Bowl. It wasn't like they just had a guy or two who was good. I would say Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas are locks for the Hall of Fame. Bobby Wagner's probably a lock at this point. Cam Chancellor's on the fringe, but, like, they had Russell, who I think is going to get into them. Marshawn is probably fringe. That's a lot of talent, and none of those guys are here anymore. So, I mean, there's 2 sides of the coin right now for Seattle. It's like, well, not having a quarterback would suck. You know what I mean? But having a quarterback who doesn't want to be here sucks too. So, like, which one's worse? And I know I said trade him. I honestly don't know which one they should do.
Well, Michael, is it to the point – look, Rob and I were talking about this. When a guy says, I want to stay, I don't want to be traded, but if you're going to trade me, here are the 4 teams I want to go to. It's like a woman saying, I don't want to break up, but let's date other people. You know what I mean? Like, does he want out and he just doesn't want to ruin his good guy image of, being that guy that demanded a trade? Or, because it seems like when you give a team 4 teams to trade you to, it seems like you want out.
The analogy that I gave on my Seahawks Man to Man podcast, I was like, this is like Drumline. Like, Russell is Nick Cannon's character, Devin Miles. Like, yo, Mr. Wade, you got room for me on your band next year? Like, he's out. Like, mentally, he out. He just can't call Sean Payton or call John Gruden and be like, hey, you got room for me on your team next year? It's like, well, no, this is collusion, son. I got to hang up the phone. But, like, that's where he's at with it. I read, I think it was like Schefter's tweet. It was all funky worded. That's a trade request. I don't give a damn what Russ's camp is saying.
Right.
If you say, hey, these are the teams I'm willing to go to and I have the no trade clause, that means I want out. Like he said, Rob, like he's done all the things that you're not supposed to do. Pete Carroll's number 1 rule is protect the team. Well, Russ has then came out here and said he don't agree with the coach firing the OC. He done said the O-line ain't good enough. And now he's saying, well, I kind of want to be in Vegas or New Orleans or whatever. Like, all right, man, go.
How
if that's
is this playing
the
in
case, get
Seattle? How is this playing with Seattle fans? Do you know? Like, are people like, bent out of shape about it, or are they like, wait a minute, what's going on? What's happened to Russell?
Or,
yeah, like where are they? The fans,
this is kind of like it's just Seattle Twitter or Seahawks Twitter has kind of turned into like Black Twitter when Insecure is on. Like you got Team Lawrence and Team Issa. Well, Seahawks Twitter is that right now. Like you got Team Russ and you got Team Pete. You know, people who are Seahawks fans who've been fans for a long time recognize, hey guys, we sucked before Pete got here. And then you got the Team Russ people who are like, well, we actually still kind of sucked when Pete got here.
Right.
But we got really good when Russ got here. So it's just a matter of which guy you give the benefit of the doubt to, because, you know, like, all right, Russell's really good, but Pete drafted Russ, and Pete drafted the Legion of Boom and traded for Marshawn, you know, but Russ has been really good without those guys. You know, he's gotten better since then. It really is a legit civil war. Like, if anyone is really, really, really bored during the little quarantine, go through my mentions, and it's just a mess of Seahawks fans arguing with each other about who was really responsible for this era when, as is very similar in New England, it's not Brady or Belichick. It's both. You need both to have a run like the Seahawks have had.
So you covered them all year, obviously. Do you think it was right to stop letting Russ cook? And yeah, because obviously the results over the second half of the season weren't great as far as his stats. And, you know, they still won games, obviously. They were 12-4. But which way do you think is better?
Though.
Is it better to let Russ cook like in the first half of the season or to go more to the ball control like they did in the second half?
I think that it was better from a football standpoint to have a pass-first offense because I think a run-first offense puts more strain on your defense. Like, what do all the coaches who are a fan of that style say? I want to run and play good defense. Well, if I got a really high-flying passing offense, my defense can actually be trash and we can kind of get by. At the very least, my defense just has to be average when you have an elite passing offense. Your defense has to be elite when you have a very good run offense. That's just kind of how it goes at this point. That's why Tennessee was never going to have a shot. The defense stunk. I don't care how good Derrick Henry was. So for me, I knew Seattle's defense wasn't like elite. So what you really need is to have a high-flying or at least a very efficient passing offense. The other part of that, too, is don't change up to let Russ cook if it's going to piss Russ off. Right? Like, that's a way worse slogan is Russ is pissed off. You don't want that because when he's not him, he's throwing the ball to the other team. And I don't really care what Pete believes at that point. If your quarterback is unhappy, it'll eventually affect the on-field product. I don't care how many times he smiles and wears suits and says, "Go Hawks" in a press conference. When he is unhappy, the on-field product will reflect that.
How about Bucky Brooks had stats? We had him on earlier on the show from the NFL Network, and he said that against playoff teams this year, Russ had, what was it, Chris, 8 touchdowns and 9 giveaways? Is that what the numbers were?
9 touchdowns, 8 turnovers.
Was it the other way?
Against playoff teams, I think.
Yeah. Did you notice that against better teams he struggled or and blew out bad teams?
Yeah, no, that was definitely a thing. I think, so those numbers are probably coming from the Buffalo game where he turned it over 4 times, the Rams games where he was really bad against the Rams pretty much every time. I can't remember the other playoff team. Oh, Washington. He played Washington. Right. So, like, he wasn't very good against them, but I don't even think the splits are as much of a big deal as, like, the behind the scenes. Like, I was telling people all year, like, even during the season, I was like, something doesn't smell right. Like, I just thought him and Pete and the offensive coordinator were just not on the same page. Like, I envisioned all of them back there just arguing and then going on to the field and then just putting something out there. If they played the Jets, it would work. And if they played the Rams, it didn't. Like, I think that what goes on behind the scenes is very influential. I mean, you guys know. You guys been around the game. Like, if dudes hate each other or aren't on the same page, like, that can only be sustainable for so long. Eventually, the on-field product is going to reflect the disconnects that guys are having.
I mean, we've seen teams win, but you're right. I mean, we've seen it, right? We saw guys not get along. We used to always talk about the Yankees and who else, Chris? There was a couple teams.
The Billy Martin Yankees and all that. The Bad Boys had their
The Bad Boys, they had some bad blood going on there, but they won.
Shaq, Kobe, Lakers.
Yeah, but it's Michael, you're right for the most part.
Let's cut to the chase. Where do you see this thing going? Is he going to get traded, you think, before the season, or is he going to be back next year in Seattle?
I mean, that's the money question. Like, if you're the Seahawks right now, you're sitting there like, dude, we don't want to trade you. Like, we're hanging up on these teams. We're not saying give us 3 first-round picks because Pete Carroll and John Snyder know, man, we stunk before we got a quarterback. we trade you, we're probably not getting a quarterback. So I think if they're going to have to decide between having a quarterback who doesn't want to be there versus not having a quarterback at all, it is safer for job security to just have the quarterback who doesn't want to be there. Because at the very least, he'll go out there and ball. Like, you go out there without a quarterback for a year or two, everybody getting fired. Like, that's just how that works. And one thing I know about this business, and pretty much every business in America, people prioritize not getting fired. Right? So I think that they're going to keep Russell Wilson on the team at least through 2021. But if they don't go to the Super Bowl this year, which I don't think they will, we're going to be right back here, not just speculating, they're going to trade him this year. We're going to be talking about, oh, no, this is why they've already traded him to, whatever team.
You said something interesting, that Pete Carroll and company are hanging up on teams. Are they entertaining these talks? Well, it would take this to get Russ. It would take, or are they are they not really engaged in these teams?
Yeah, I don't think they really are. Like, they want to have Russell Wilson. Like, they know life before Russell. It stunk. Rest in peace to Tavares Jackson. That was not fun. 2010 Matt Hasselbeck, that was bad. They just happened to be playing in a very bad NFC West and had the beast quake in the playoffs, but they stunk, right? Like, that was it. Like, they don't want to stink again. Like, they were going to draft Pat Mahomes in 2017. They went to Josh Allen's pro day in 2018.
Right.
And that was while they had Russ. Like, they were going to get two quarterbacks. Like, that's how serious they treat the quarterback position. It's like, look at the cost landscape right now. Every team that's not Houston, why do they suck on offense if they do suck?
Right.
The quarterback.
QB. Right.
It's the quarterback. They don't, except for Houston. Every other team, that's the case. So they're like, why would we just dump him if he's not going to hold out, if he's still going to come here and play well, because he can't afford to play bad, not in football, you'll die.
Right.
So I think that, they'll keep him, but like, whew, if Russ got to go to the Super Bowl in a suit again next year, somebody's head's going to roll.
That's Michael-Shawn Dugar, covers the Seahawks for The Athletic. Great stuff, man. We appreciate it. We will have you on again, my man.